Hello everyone, welcome to this video discussion on business communication, specifically on the features that need to be present when writing your business letters. In this video discussion, I shall briefly discuss to you the different features that must be present in any business letter that you will be writing in the future. In business writing, it is very significant that we writers know how to pay particular attention to our audience. This is specifically true when we have already identified the recipients of our letters. Here are some guide questions which will remind us of the things that we should consider when writing our business letters. First one is, to whom should I write? So you have to identify the recipient of your letter. So when writing business letters, it is very important that you know exactly who shall receive your letter. Why? Because the language or the tone when you write your letter will heavily depend also on the recipient of your letter. Let's say you are going to write a letter addressed to your boss or your superior. Therefore, you have to use formal language. But when you are to write a letter that is addressed only to your workmate, or maybe someone who is of the same level or position as yours in a certain department or organization, then you could use a neutral or friendly or conversational tone when writing your business letters. And then you also need to identify why that person. So maybe there are specific pieces of information that you need to incorporate in your business letters. And it's also very important to pay particular attention to this one, because this will also somehow affect the contents of your letter. And then you also need to consider the position. As what I mentioned, the tone, okay, or the language or the diction when you write your business letters will heavily depend on the position of the person who will be receiving your letter. In terms of the language in writing business letters, there are three qualities that must always be present. These are, first, conciseness, second, informality, third is courtesy. Now, we have a lot of characteristics or features that must be present in any business letter. But I'd like to give so much importance on these three because they typically also impact the reaction or the response of the list of the reader once they receive the business letter. So let us begin with the first essential quality, which is conciseness. Remember that in the corporate world, not everyone has the luxury of time to read everything that is stipulated in a business letter. Therefore, as letter writers, we need to recognize also that we should incorporate only those that are essential. Hence, we need to be straightforward with our points so that we can be easily understood by our readers. Go directly to the point, and then you should always avoid wordiness. So when I say wordiness, there could be two instances or examples for this. For example, we have Deadwood. Second one, we also have GABBODOGOK. Now, these two different linguistic terms may suggest one thing, and that is wordiness. And in order for us to achieve conciseness, we need to eradicate any form of wordiness in our business letter. So as mentioned, conciseness means the avoidance of deadwood. So what is a Deadwood expression? A Deadwood expression is an expression which repeats the same thing. And in this case, it uses excess words. Sometimes when we write statements or sentences, we have this tendency to be verbose or very wordy. And we could have expressed one single thought or a single thought in a brief manner, but we oftentimes choose to express it in a verbose way. So in this case, we really need to make sure to achieve conciseness by eradicating all sorts of this from our business letter. So let's have these examples. Deadwood expressions are found in the first column, while the corrected versions are found in the next column. So you can see here, instead of saying in view of the fact that, or due to the fact that, we can actually simply say because they have the same meaning. And then instead of saying had the effects of causing, we can simplify it by saying caused. The statement, would you be kind enough to, you can simplify saying this by writing, would you please? Okay. Instead of saying, I want to take this opportunity to thank you, why not simply express or write thank you? Instead of saying in the event that, you can write if, or to avoid redundancy, you do not say personally, I believe anymore, because the personally and I here have the same effect in the statement. So you can simply say, I believe. And then the statement, the common mistake when writing business letters is when we write this statement first, I want to make it clear that, and then you state the point. Okay? Why not simply state what you want? Through this, we can observe conciseness by eradicating those unessential or unnecessary words from our sentences or paragraphs. And we are also minimizing the number of words or the number of paragraphs in our letters. Another thing that we need to avoid when we talk about conciseness is gobbledygook. Now, gobbledygook can be those inflated words or inflated languages or elaborately polite expressions. Now, the only difference between gobbledygook and the other one, inflated language or the jargons that we use when we write business letters, is that gobbledygook has the tendency, or when you use gobbledygook, it has the tendency of using more elaborate words. Okay, words that are very long and sometimes very highfalutin or complicated that we no longer understand the meaning of it once used in a sentence. So that is why we need to eradicate any form of gobbledygook statement from our paragraphs or business letters. Take a look at these examples. First one, enclosed please find. Okay, you can simply say, I am enclosing. Subsequent to the purchase of your, you can simply say after buying your. Instead of saying in accordance with the terms of your warranty, you can simply say your warranty provides, to make it brief. Instead of saying reference is made herewith, why not simply say I am referring to? Okay, and when we write letters, we commonly use the term the said. Okay, we can avoid this by simply specifying the item or the entity. So instead of saying the said lawnmower, why not simply say this lawnmower to get rid of the excess word which is said. Apart from conciseness, let us always remember that it is also important that we know what tone or in what tone should we write the letter. That means we need to be sure whether it has to be formal or just conversational or friendly. Now, the rule of the thumb here is to make sure that your letter is simple in terms of structure and word choice, because our primary goal here is to be easily understood by our readers or recipients. And since we are talking about simplicity, it's also vital to know about informality. Now, informality in the context of letter writing does not necessarily point out to being informal in terms of the language used. You don't have to use contractions or colloquialism in order for you to express your ideas in an informal way. Informality could oftentimes refer to using simple language, the informal ones, so that you can be easily understood or so that your message could be effectively relayed towards your readers. So when we talk about informality, it's called the everyday language, the friendly language that we use. So it has to be relaxed only. It doesn't have to be too formal. It doesn't have to be filled with jargons, because the tendency is that we will never be understood by our readers if we use a lot of jargons or technical terms in our letters, right? You need to use simple words and sentence structures. You can also use personal pronouns like I, me, and you, so that you can actually establish a stronger connection with your reader. And then don't go overboard and resort to slang or overly casual expressions, okay? Those that are already contracted in form or those that are already considered very slang. Okay, so we don't use such informal words when writing business letters. The last quality that we need to remember is courtesy. It is very important that when we write business letters, we have to be polite at all times, even if the tone or the purpose for writing the letter might not really require you to be that polite. Okay, let's say it's just a letter expressing something towards the recipient. So in that case, you are highly expected to be polite to your readers by choosing the best words which could really project or reflect that politeness you want to relay or channel towards your recipients. In this case, if we want to achieve courtesy, we also need to avoid any form of sarcasm and anger. Okay? However, we need to remember also that sarcasm and anger are not the only forms of discourtesy. We also have the so-called curt demands, which are very common when writing letters of request. Okay, curt demands and writing with negative implications can also be very offensive to readers. For example, I want you to send me, or I need a copy of. If you look at these statements very carefully, these statements suggest a demand. Okay, this is an example of a curt demand, something that will really require you to take a specific action after this has been written in the letter. Now, you can actually write this in a courteous way by saying, would you please send me? So the use of the auxiliary and the intensification of the request by using the word please actually suggests or signals that there is a better way of sending or relaying or channeling a request message towards a person or the recipient of your business letter. In any business letter, again, it is very important that we know the specific characteristics that must be possessed. But based on this video discussion, I emphasize the three most important aspects. Again, to recap, we have first one, conciseness. Make sure that your letter is brief and could be easily understood by your readers. Through this, there will be no confusions once they start reading or during the reading process of your business letter. Second one, use informal language. But the informality I'm referring to here does not necessarily point out to slang words or contracted versions of words. Informality here refers to using friendly or casual tone when writing your business letters. Also, the use of personal pronouns I, me, and you will definitely help a lot in establishing connection with your readers. And lastly, always observe courtesy. Being respectful is a must when writing letters. In here, it is very important as well to know how to properly write curt demands in a way that you are being polite and that it doesn't sound that demanding. So there are ways by adding auxiliary would and adding an additional word, which is please or kindly, to intensify that the sentence is really a request. So I hope that you learned something from this video discussion. And if you have further questions about the things I briefly discussed, you are free to comment or post your questions in the open forum. Thank you very much for listening and watching this video discussion.